In the heart of New York City's glittering skyline, where fortunes rise and fall like the tides of the stock market, a tale unfolded that would challenge everything we think we know about luck, genius, and the razor-thin line between rags and riches. Picture this. A stormy evening in Central Park, rain pounding the pavement like a relentless drumbeat, and amid the chaos, a disheveled man huddled under a tattered umbrella, his chessboard laid out on a weathered bench as his only companion. This was Elias Thorne, once a prodigy whispered about in elite circles, now forgotten by the world, surviving on scraps and the occasional game against passers-by who pitted him enough to play. Enter Victor Langford, the billionaire tycoon whose empire spanned tech conglomerates and real estate behemoths, a man so wealthy he could buy islands on a whim. Victor wasn't just rich. He was bored, his life a monotonous parade of boardrooms and private jets. That night, as his chauffeured limo crawled to the park's winding paths to avoid traffic, he spotted Elias through the tinted window, a lone figure moving pieces with the precision of a surgeon. Intrigued, or perhaps seeking a thrill, Victor stepped out into the downpour, his bespoke suit instantly soaked, and approached the bench with the confidence of someone who owned the very ground beneath it. "You there," Victor boomed, his voice cutting to the rain like thunder. "You look like you got nothing to lose. How about a game? Chess, right? If you win, I'll hand over my company, lock, stock, and barrel, worth billions. But if I win—" He paused, a sly grin spreading across his chiseled face. "You disappear from this city forever. No more begging in my backyard." Elias lifted his head slowly, his eyes sharp, unyielding, like polished obsidian, meeting Victor's without a flicker of fear. The homeless man's beard was unkempt, his clothes threadbare, but there was an aura about him, a quiet intensity that made Victor's entourage shift uneasily in the shadows. "Why me?" Elias asked, his voice steady, laced with a faint accent that hinted at distant lands and forgotten stories. "Because," Victor replied, settling onto the bench opposite him, oblivious of the puddles soaking his Italian leather shoes, "life's too predictable. I crave a gamble that matters. And you? You reek of desperation. Perfect opponent." The board was reset under the flickering light of a nearby lamppost, pieces glistening with raindrops. Victor, a self-proclaimed master who'd bested grandmasters at charity events, moved first, pawn at e4, aggressive, commanding. Elias responded with a subtle counter, his fingers hovering for just a moment before committing. As the game progressed, the storm seemed to hush, as if the city itself held its breath. Victor's opening was flawless, a Sicilian defense honed by years of high-stakes hobbies. But Elias played with an eerie calm, anticipating moves 3, for steps ahead. Whispers from Victor's bodyguards filtered through the rain, bosses toying with him. But as the middle game unfolded, Victor's brow furrowed. Elias sacrificed a knight, not recklessly, but with surgical intent, drawing Victor into a web of complexity that even his sharp mind struggled to unravel. The billionaire leaned forward, the weight of his empire suddenly feeling heavier than ever, while Elias remained impassive, his gaze fixed on the board like a predator sizing up prey. By the 20th move, the park had transformed into an impromptu arena. A small crowd gathered, joggers, late-night wanderers, even a few off-duty cops, drawn by the spectacle of this mismatched duel. Victor's queen advanced boldly, threatening checkmate in 5, but Elias countered with a pawn promotion that turned the tide, his pieces dancing in harmony like a symphony only he could conduct. Sweat mixed with rain on Victor's forehead. For the first time in decades, doubt crept in. "Who are you, really?" he muttered, his voice low. Elias smiled faintly, the first crack in his stoic facade. Just a man who learned chess in the streets of Moscow, where every game was for survival. But there was more to it. Flashes of a past life, a child chess champion, a betrayal by mentors, a fall from grace into obscurity. As the endgame loomed, Victor realized this wasn't just a bet. It was a reckoning. Elias's rook slid into position, trapping Victor's king in a vice. Check. The billionaire's hand trembled as he contemplated his next move, the company's fate hanging by a thread. And that's when Elias leaned in, whispering something that made Victor's eyes widen in shock. "You don't have to do this," Elias said softly, his breath visible in the cold air. "Resign now and the bet is off. Walk away with your empire intact." Victor stared at the board, then at the man across from him, the rain drumming harder now as if urging a decision. The crowd had grown silent, phones held high, recording what could become legend or scandal by morning. Victor's pride, that unbreakable armor forged in hostile takeovers and cutthroat negotiations, cracked just enough for humility to seep through. But surrender? To a homeless man? The thought was poison. No, Victor hissed, slamming his king forward in a desperate gambit that sacrificed his last rook for a fleeting attack. It was a move born of ego, not strategy, and Elias saw it coming from miles away. With a quiet sigh, he slid his bishop across the board. Checkmate. The king was cornered, no escapes, no miracles. The park erupted. Gasps, cheers, disbelieving laughter. Victor sat frozen, the weight of billions evaporating in an instant. His bodyguard stepped closer, unsure whether to intervene or congratulate. One of them, a burly ex-Marine named Reyes, whispered urgently, "Boss, we can call this off. Say it was a joke. No one's going to hold you to." But Victor raised a hand, silencing him. He looked at Elias, really looked, for the first time seeing not a beggar but a force of nature wrapped in rags. "A deal's a deal," Victor said, his voice hoarse. He pulled out his phone, fingers trembling as he dialed his lawyer. "Get the papers ready. Full transfer. Langford Enterprises, all of it." The crowd buzzed louder. Someone live-streamed it. Within minutes, #CentralParkChess was trending worldwide. Headlines are already forming in journalists' minds. Billionaire loses empire in rain-soaked chess game to homeless genius. Elias, however, didn't celebrate. He simply began packing the worn wooden pieces into a velvet pouch, each one handled with reverence. "I don't want your company," he said quietly, not looking up. Victor blinked, rain streaming down his face. "What?" "I said I don't want it." Elias met his gaze again, those obsidian eyes unreadable. "But I will take something else." The billionaire leaned forward, confusion mixing with a strange relief. "Name it. Money? A house? Whatever you want." Elias stood, folding the chessboard under his arm. "I want you to listen, really listen, to a story you won't believe until you see the proof." He gestured toward the park's exit, where the rain had eased into a mist. Victor, still reeling, followed without question, his bodyguards trailing at a distance, exchanging worried glances. They walked in silence through the lamplit paths, past sleeping ducks on the pond, until Elias led him to a nondescript storage locker facility on the edge of the park, one of those 24-hour places with flickering fluorescent lights and the faint smell of mildew. Elias punched in the code 7-4-2-9, and the gate rattled open. They descended to Unit 217, a 10-by-10 space crammed floor, the ceiling with boxes, files, and dust-covered prototypes. Victor's confusion deepened as Elias pulled out a leather-bound journal, yellow with age, and handed it over. "Open it," Elias instructed. Victor did, flipping through pages filled with meticulous handwriting, diagrams, patents, ideas for revolutionary AI algorithms, sustainable energy systems, neural interfaces that made today's tech look like toys, dates going back decades. And at the bottom of each page, a signature, Elias Thorne. Victor's breath caught. This is impossible. Elias Thorne disappeared 25 years ago. He was supposed to be the next big thing in tech, mentored by you, Elias finished, his voice carrying a bitterness long fermented. Or rather, by the man who was my partner before he became Victor Langford. The world tilted for Victor. Memories flooded back. A young prodigy he'd met at a Moscow chess tournament in the late 90s. A kid barely out his teens with ideas that could change everything. They'd collaborated in secret, building prototypes in a cramped apartment. Victor had promised partnership, equity, glory. But when investors came knocking, Victor had taken it all. The patents filed under his name alone, the credit, the billions. He'd paid off officials to bury the trail, convince himself the kid would never resurface. Elias had vanished shortly after, rumored to have returned to Russia or worse. You're him, Victor whispered, the journal shaking in his hands. I thought you were dead. I was, Elias replied. The version of me that believed in people like you. Anyway, after the betrayal, I couldn't face the world I'd helped build on lies. I walked away from everything. Lived on the streets, first in Moscow, then here. Chess was all I had left that no one could steal. Victor sank onto a crate, the enormity crashing over him. His empire wasn't just lost in a game. It had always partially belonged to this man. Why the bet? Why now? Elias pulled out another item, a flash drive, because I needed you to feel what loss tastes like. Helpless, exposed, but also because the world has changed. Your company, our company, is on the verge of something dangerous. Those new AI projects you're pushing, they're based on my old neural mapping work, but twisted. Weaponized potential you don't fully understand. Victor paled. He knew the classified contracts, the Defense Department whispers. How could you possibly? I've been watching, Elias said, from the shadows, hacking scraps here and there, playing chess with coders who talk too much after a loss. You were about to unleash something that could control minds on a mass scale, all for profit and power. The billionaire looked stricken. I didn't know it would go that far. The board pushed. You're bored, Elias corrected, but not anymore. He held out his hand for the journal. Victor returned it numbly. The bet stands. The company is mine now. But I'm not here to destroy it, or you. Then what do you want? Victor asked, voice breaking. Elias paused, considering. A real partnership this time. 50-50. We fix what you've broken. Redirect the tech toward healing, mental health applications, education, solving real problems. And you step down as CEO. I'll run it from the light, not the shadows. Victor laughed bitterly, a sound without humor. You think the board will accept a homeless man. Former homeless, Elias interrupted, pulling out a tailored suit from one of the boxes, still in plastic from decades ago. And the world already loves an underdog story. By morning, I'll be the genius who beat a billionaire at chess and reclaimed his destiny. The media will eat it up. Your investors will follow the winner. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance. Perhaps paparazzi or police responded to viral videos. Time was running out. Victor looked at the man he'd wronged, seeing now the quiet strength that had survived betrayal, poverty, isolation. Something shifted inside him, a redemption he hadn't known he craved. And if I refuse? Victor asked, though he already knew the answer. Elias shrugged. Then I take it all anyway. Dissolve the dangerous projects, sell off pieces, donate proceeds to shelters. Your legacy becomes a man who lost everything to arrogance. Victor extended his hand slowly. Partners. For real this time. Elias hesitated, searching Victor's face for deceit, finding instead a fractured man seeking absolution. He clasped the hand firmly. Partners. As they emerged from the locker, dawn was breaking over the city, painting the skyline in gold. Camera crews were already gathering at the park entrance, tipped off by the viral storm. Elias straightened his posture, shedding years of invisibility like an old coat. Victor walked beside him, no longer the king, but a humble knight. The press conference that followed was chaos. Questions flying about the bet, the game, the sudden transfer of power. Elias spoke calmly, revealing just enough of his past to captivate without overwhelming. Victor stood supportively, confirming every detail, his reputation bending but not breaking. Within weeks, Langford Thorne Enterprises, as it was rebranded, announced groundbreaking initiatives, AI-driven therapy accessible to the underserved, chess programs in schools to teach strategy and resilience, massive donations to homeless outreach. The stock soared higher than ever, carried on the wave of public fascination. But beneath the polished surface, deeper currents stirred. Late nights in the newly shared executive office, Elias and Victor pored over old blueprints, arguing passionately about ethics versus progress. Trust built slowly, like a complex opening in chess. Tentative moves, testing defenses. One evening, months later, as snow fell softly outside the penthouse windows, Victor poured 2 glasses of scotch. I still can't believe you let me live with my mistakes instead of crushing me. Elias accepted the glass, swirling it thoughtfully. Revenge is a stale endgame. Redemption, that's where the real mastery lies. Victor nodded, then ventured a question that had haunted him. That night in the park, was the checkmate inevitable, or did you hold back at some point? Elias smiled enigmatically, the same faint curve from that rainy bench. A true master never reveals his sacrifices. Outside, the city glittered, unaware that its newest titan had once slept under its bridges. And in the quiet moments between board meetings and breakthroughs, Elias would sometimes set up his old chessboard on the mahogany desk, inviting Victor to play. Not for empires this time, but for understanding. Yet even as their partnership deepened, shadows lingered. Anonymous threats arrived. Coded messages hinting that others had profited from Victor's original theft. Powerful figures who feared exposure now that Elias had resurfaced. Board members with hidden agendas began maneuvering, and a rival tech mogul circled, sensing vulnerability in the transition. One cryptic email in particular chilled them both. A single chess position diagram, with the subject line, "Your move." The position showed a king in peril, surrounded by unseen threats. Elias studied it late into the night, recognizing the style immediately. "This isn't over," he murmured to Victor, who had dozed off in the adjacent chair. "Someone else was in on Betrayal all those years ago. They're coming for us now." Victor stirred, rubbing his eyes. Then we faced them together. Elias nodded, resetting the pieces on the board to mirror the email position. As he contemplated his response, the city lights flickered beyond the glass, and the game, the real one, stretched out into unknown depths, promising moves neither man could yet foresee. As Elias pondered the ominous chess diagram glowing on the screen, the pieces arranged in a precarious stalemate that screamed of calculated malice, he felt the old fire ignite within him, the same unyielding resolve that had carried him through frozen Moscow nights and New York's unforgiving alleys. This wasn't just a puzzle. It was a declaration of war from the ghosts of their shared past. Victor, now fully awake, peered over his shoulder, the scotch forgotten as adrenaline sharpened his senses. "Who sent it?" he demanded, his tycoon's instincts kicking in, already mentally dialing private investigators and cybersecurity experts. Elias traced the email's metadata with a few keystrokes on a hidden laptop he retrieved from his storage trove. Old habits from his shadowy years. Anonymous, routed through layers of proxies. But the position, it's from a game I played long ago against a rival in the underground circuits. Dmitry Volkov. He was your silent partner in the betrayal. Victor, the one who forged the documents, buried my name. I thought he'd faded into obscurity, but clearly he's been biding his time, profiting from the empire we built. Volkov, a name Victor hadn't uttered in decades, a shadowy financier with ties to Eastern European oligarchs, whose cut of the stolen patents had funded his own ascent into a world of black market tech and corporate espionage. The realization hit Victor like a rogue wave. His betrayal hadn't been solitary. It had accomplices, and now, with Elias's resurgence, those shadows were converging. "He's coming for company," Victor surmised, pacing the room, the city lights casting elongated shadows that danced like phantoms on the walls. Or for us. The threats escalated swiftly, as if the email had uncorked a bottle of pent-up vengeance. The next day, subtle hacks probed the company's firewalls, data leaks hinting at exposed secrets, stock prices dipping on whispers of instability. Board members received anonymous dossiers detailing Victor's original theft, sowing seeds of doubt. Elias, now installed as co-CEO, moved with the precision of a grandmaster, fortifying offenses with algorithms he designed in solitude. But Volkov was no amateur. His moves were insidious, a slow poison seeping through the veins of their newfound alliance. Amid the turmoil, Elias and Victor's partnership deepened into something profound, forged in the crucible of adversity. Late-night strategy sessions blurred into dawn, where chessboards mingled with holographic projections of corporate structures. Victor, stripped of his arrogance, learned humility from Elias's quiet wisdom, lessons in empathy drawn from street survival, reminding him that true power lay not in domination but in upliftment. Elias, in turn, rediscovered trust, allowing Victor's business acumen to amplify his visionary ideas. Together, they unveiled prototypes that captured the world's imagination. neural implants for Alzheimer's patients, drawing on Elias's original work to restore memories like piecing together a shattered mosaic. AI tutors democratizing education in underserved communities, turning smartphones into portals of knowledge. The media frenzy amplified their saga. Talk shows dissected the chessboard redemption. Documentaries chronicle Elias's rise from homelessness to heroism, and viral clips of their joint interviews showcase a bond that inspired millions. Viewers tuned in not just for the drama, but for the hope it ignited. That second chances could rewrite destinies, that genius could triumph over greed. Yet, beneath the glamour, Volkov's noose tightened. A gala fundraiser for their new initiatives became the stage for his next strike, a poisoned chalice in the form of a fabricated scandal, accusing Elias of faking his identity, backed by doctored evidence that surfaced online. The city buzzed with speculation as Elias and Victor retreated to the penthouse, the weight of impending ruin pressing down. "We end this," Elias declared, his voice a steel blade. He proposed a bold gambit. Lure Volkov out with a public challenge, a high-stakes chess tournament broadcast live. Winner takes all in a symbolic duel for control, a disputed patent's worth billions. Victor hesitated, knowing the risks, but saw the brilliance. It would expose Volkov's hand, turning his shadows into spotlight. The announcement electrified the globe. "The Battle of Titans," headline screamed, pitting the reclaimed genius against the enigmatic mogul. Tickets sold out in minutes. Streaming platforms crashed under demand. Central Park transformed into a coliseum under a massive dome. Chessboard projected on giant screens. Drones capturing every nuance. Volkov accepted, emerging from obscurity. A silver-haired specter with eyes like frozen lakes. His arrival heralded by armored limos and whispers of his ruthless empire. The night of the game arrived under a canopy of stars, the air electric with anticipation. Thousands gathered, a sea of faces from billionaires to buskers, united by the allure of human drama. Elias, in a tailored suit that echoed his lost youth, faced Volkov across the board. Victor to side a second. The opening moves were a dance of giants. Volkov's aggressive rushing game. Probing for weaknesses, Elias's measured response, weaving a net of subtle traps. Commentators breathlessly analyzed. Volkov sacrifices a pawn, bold. Thorn counters with a knight fork, genius. As the middle game intensified, Volkov leaned in, his whisper venomous. "You should have stayed buried, boy. This empire was never yours." Elias's eyes flashed, but his hand remained steady, unleashing a cascade of moves that dismantled Volkov's defenses. The crowd roared as pieces fell, each capture a metaphor for reclaimed justice. Victor watched, heart pounding, realizing this wasn't just chess. It was catharsis, a purging of old wounds. In a pivotal moment, Volkov overextended, his queen exposed in a bid for quick victory. Elias pounced, promoting a pawn to queen in a brilliant under-promotion twist, forcing check in 3. Volkov's face crumpled as he resigned, the board declaring Elias's triumph. Cheers erupted like thunder, fireworks illuminating the park in a symphony of light. Volkov slunk away, his empire crumbling as authorities, tipped off by Elias's pre-game dossier, swooped in with warrant for fraud and espionage. In the aftermath, Elias and Victor stood atop their rebranded tower, the city sprawling below like a conquered kingdom. The company soared to unprecedented heights, its innovations healing divides, bridging economic gaps with affordable tech, fostering global collaborations that turned rivals into allies. Elias founded academies where street kids learned chess as a gateway to coding and strategy, birthing a new generation of thinkers. Victor, redeemed, channeled his wealth into philanthropy, mending the fractures he'd once exploited. But the true magnificence lay in intangible, the spark of inspiration that rippled outward. Viewers worldwide, glued to screens, saw not just a story of victory, but a blueprint for resilience. If a homeless man can reclaim billions through intellect and heart, one viral post proclaimed, "What can't we achieve?" Families gathered around dinner tables, debating moves. Entrepreneurs drew from Elias's playbook to challenge giants. Artists immortalized the tale in murals and songs. Years later, on a quiet anniversary, Elias and Victor revisited the Central Park bench where it all began. Rain pattered softly, a nostalgic echo. They set up the old board. Pieces worn but enduring. One more game. Victor asked, a grin creasing his face. Elias nodded, moving first. Pawn to e4, the same opening that had sparked their odyssey. As they played, laughter mingled with strategy. The board a bridge between past and future. No bets this time. Just camaraderie. A testament that from the depths of betrayal blooms the heights of brotherhood. And as the sun rose, gilding the skyline in promise, their story endured, not as a fairy tale, but as a beacon. For in a world of fleeting fortunes, true wealth lies in the moves we make together, the risks we embrace, and the legacies we forge. Listeners, viewers, dreamers, let this ignite your own gambit. The board is set. Your move awaits.